this just fantasy? Of course, nothing's just fantasy. This is Nerida by David Lujan. This is a creator-owned book. It's published by a publisher called Lesser Known Comics. That's their little emblem. And if you are, if you've never heard of them, I guess their moniker is pretty true. But I have met this creator, and I bought this from him in person. And I was actually a fan of his work before I even met him. And it was to my surprise that he kind of lived in the same area as I did. So it was a happy circumstance. And as you can see on the back, he has another book called Yuriko. And it's about a vampire. And it's also a really cool book. But Nerida is more closely a fantasy book, you could say. They both are. Doesn't mean vampires are supernatural, so that counts. But I wanted to talk about Nerida specifically because I really love it. And I want to put more out there about creator-owned works. Because I'm a creator and I want people to see my work, so might as well pay it forward, create the kind of environment that I want to be a part of as in this comic community. And just so you can tell that Nerida is a smaller format than a standard comic. So like, for instance, here's my comic, my creator-owned comic, Side Questers, just to compare. So it is a nice, actually, I like the format. I like the size a lot. It's unusual, it's unconventional, but that's kind of what makes it stand out. But it's still inside great comic storytelling, great art, and very just great setup for an interesting story. So I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to try to leave some room for exploration for yourselves because I want you all to get your own copies of Nerida. I want you to introduce yourself to David's work. Oh, and just as a word of, I guess, warning, there's nudity in this. There is. So you've been told, and I also already opened it. So, what is the premise? And it's interesting because both Nerida and Yuriko have a little bit of a prologue in text form of essentially what to expect or what's the story thus far. Yuriko seems to be a adjacent work to a prose novel that he's writing, and they're like kind of graphic addendums or additions to the story, or maybe they're just parts of the story that he's illustrating. Nerida, though, seems to be it's just a fully graphic work, and it is essentially about a selkie or a mermaid or a water nymph, a sprite, and even says that like right here, and she essentially gets stranded on land due to kind of, I guess, a mistake on her part. And it deals with supernatural creatures like selkies and ones that aren't as easily defined, but it seems to take place primarily in Ireland or near Ireland, in the British Isles, let's say, because it's dealing with creatures that exist in that kind of mythos. But this Silky is I guess a universal term for kind of a, like they say, a mermaid or water nymph or sprite. So it's not the traditional Silky, which is like a seal woman. This is more or less like a mermaid who also kind of fits the bill of a Selkie. Anyway, it alludes to a grander world just in this first page. And it's already a nice page. I really love David's art. I think it's just lovely. I love his use of color and texture, and I like how he breaks things out in his panel work, and it's just, it's very pleasing, it's very easy to read, and you know, you've never seen a mermaid with hair that color, have you? But the key thing that happens, it happens right away, is her sister water nymphs, her sister mermaids, are trying to warn her that a human is coming, and they need to return to the water. They have to put their skin back on, and if they can't, then they're essentially stuck. And it's essentially like her mermaid tail, and this old dude finds it on the shore and scoops it up, and so she's gonna have to try to get it back. And already I just like, it's a simple character design, obviously, and but it designates her very easily. The color of her hair and eyes, the fact that she's a naked lady, it all does well to designate her visually. There's absolutely no confusion in this issue with who is it, who's talking, who am I looking at. That's something that can come up here and there when you have character designs that are kind of too generic, and you have a bunch of people, and you're like, oh, wait, which one's that? Oh, their hat's a little bit different than somebody else's, but here, very good character design. Yeah, I love this little man, and he's kind of bemused by this whole thing, and I love this super dark panel here where he's paddling, and he's just a bit darker in the panel than everything else. But I just love that it's in shadow, and I love these zoom-ins, the sound effects. It tells of a very quiet, kind of eerie night, and even our shot of our Selkie, Nerida, is eerie. It's kind of creepy, and I love that there's a little bit of spookiness to it, and a little splash. Like I love these little quiet kind of panels, and then yeah, this whole page sequence, it just reads lovely. And yeah, and then here she is again, kind of in the dark. He's going home. He's showing this weird fish skin thing to his wife, but she's screwed. She's gotta get it back, and she comes to the house, and inside the house is the wife of our little old man here, and I just love this dynamic right here where she's like, "Where have you been?" He says, "I was just taking the dog out for a walk." And she's like, "We don't have a dog anymore." And he says, "Oh, well, sometimes I just miss him, you know." And it's, in that simple exchange, it's familiar, it's specific, and it's also sad, as it's clear that, like, oh, he's maybe losing his memory, or maybe he's just going through the motions because he misses his dog. In any way, like, there is this great sadness that's very believable between these two characters. And I also really love, because it's like, okay, they're just normal people. There's nothing evil or sinister about them that would make me fear for her, except for the fact that they've taken her fishtail, and so, or her fish skin. And so now she's not sure what she's going to do, and she says, the wife inside says that they have enough trouble as it is, and she's just trying to figure out how the hell she's going to get her skin back, because it's like in a drawer somewhere in there. So she starts sneaking around, and then suddenly she hears this kind of eerie voice, and there's this mysterious figure that's on the top of the house. And this guy is one of the most intriguing things about this particular issue. And again, I love the colors. I love the passage of light and everything. I think it works really well. I love the light coming in here. And this guy got these long fingernails. And he seems short. And he's got pointy ears. My first impulse is to say, okay, he's like one of the fae, or like a fairy of some variety. I'm not necessarily going to say he's a leprechaun, but he could be, or he could just be kind of one of the traditional fairies, you could say, of lore, which is a not altogether benevolent force. Most of the time they're pretty mischievous, if not downright evil. So we have this kind of mischievous looking dude showing up, and he seems like he's up to some shit, and she tries to speak, and I'm always gonna love this. Instead of doing some sort of phonetic spelling of the words, we are just getting these symbols that represent whatever she's saying. And we're not supposed to understand story-wise, so we just see that. And I just think visually, from a comic, like visual storytelling standpoint, I think that's far superior to just some made-up sounding language that you can read. But he recognizes her as a siren, and she is able to just change languages here. And he kind of asks after her, what are you doing out here? And when she mentions the man, he gets really mad. And I do not like the man. He's like, I do like nymphs though. And then he basically asks, like, okay, if I could get your skin back, or your silky back, what would you give me? And he gets real creepy real quick, because she said she would do anything. And so he's like, all right, that's a deal. I'll go back and get it. And then he kind of vanishes inside. And she says, what a disgusting little man. And then she's like, what is this place? And there's like fish nets and like fish hooks and like a blade and fish gutting. So they're fishermen, so this is where fish are gutted. So probably not a pleasant place for a Selkie. And so then he comes back pretty quick with her Selkie skin, and he's just being real creepy. But I think the design of him is very simple, but also we get all the information we need about him and how creepy this motherfucker is. And I really love the shine on this. Almost looks, you get the reflection, you get the shininess of the fish scales, but it's not too busy. There's enough line work there to designate the texture and the color, using like the spotted whites and stuff, get that shine, but it's not overly rendered, which I appreciate. And there's so much nice texture in the colors here. And his eyes just get extra creepy here. And then essentially he tries to take his payment from her physically, and it's rendered very creepily. So he's being real creepy, he's being a big shithead, and she's able to fight him off, and he just gets real gets real incel vibes here, and just is like, you're disgusting, and I don't want to be with you. But he's going to be a shithead and not give her Selkie skin. And she's like, wait, don't get rid of it. And he calls on some crows to steal her silky skin and fly away with it. And so she is essentially stranded on land until she can get it back. And I'll leave it there because there's actually a great little ending to this book that implicates that there's more going on with this guy and the couple, and that implies perhaps where our story continues on with Nerida. But all around, I think this is just a great start, and I really can't wait to see more of it, just because I enjoy the reading process, just because it's a lovely book to read. So as like a part of this issue, he has some like character designs for kind of where things may go in the future. And he has like these kind of like brownie designs, so it's a very English or British Isles. And yeah, there's just, I'm guessing he's working things out visually. I love the kind of the feeling that these drawings have. The kind of, it looks drawn, and it may sound silly, but what I mean by that is that it's somebody making choices, working things out, trying things, and that, as an artist myself, is very pleasing for me to enjoy. And so yeah, and then we have a couple kind of shout out of other books that lesser known comics publishes, and I'd say like look them up, because they have this whole piece back here about like who they are, but that they want to advocate for creators and treating artists like humans. So they're not about like turning a profit. They just want they want artists' works to be out there and to be read and enjoyed, and for artists to be able to make a living off of being artists, which is a tough thing, I can tell you. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of it, and I'm also a huge fan of Yoriko, and I will definitely talk about that at another point. But that is Nerida. Just a quick look, and yeah, I'm leaving something for y'all's imagination, or giving y'all a reason to pick it up for yourself. Nerida Book 2 is coming to Kickstarter May 3rd. So definitely look it up if you want to get your copy of Book 2 and Book 1 while you're at it. And while you're out looking to support an independent creator, why not support this independent creator by picking up his book, Side Questers. This is the first volume, and it collects the first 8 issues. It's the first complete story arc, and it's a fantasy adventure. It's got fights and magic and zombies and best friends. So that appeals to you at all. It's also got a big cool map. See? Have a fantasy map, folks. This is available on a website to purchase. You can also read it on Global Comics. These are also available for purchase, my Haxan anthologies. These are short stories that are in the SideQuesters universe that deal with magic users and are kind of these dark tales. 60 pages each, and they're available for purchase on my website. And if you like more traditional superhero comic stuff, I have my weekly webcomic 3-panel Origin. This is the collection of the first 3 years in kind of revamped physical format. And I create a character and tell their origin in 3 panels, and it's kind of silly, like The Tick or something like that. And this is a book of short stories dealing with those characters. and it's a lot of fun. Silly stuff. But what's not silly is supporting independent artists. So get your copy of Nerida.